Hello everybody, I'm Romano DeFranco, and for the past couple of years I've been compiling a list of all the most beloved NHL players that passed away each year. As the year winds down, it's time to honor and remember some of those players. I'll be counting down the top 10 most beloved NHL players who left us in 2024. We have a former Rookie of the Year award winner, another who was part of the 1972 Summit Series, as well as the last Maple Leafs team that won the Stanley Cup. Two more were part of the Montreal Canadiens Cup-winning teams in the 1950s, and some had the privilege of living long lives, while all too many on this year's list were taken way too early. So, let's start things off with number 10. Coming in at number 10 is former Boston Bruins center David Forbes. Having been left undrafted in every year of his eligibility, Forbes spent each of his first 4 years with the Boston Bruins. While in Beantown, he made it to the final round of the playoffs in his rookie year, in which they would lose to the Philadelphia Flyers. His second season with Boston was even better when he scored 18 goals to go with 12 assists for 30 points. This would end up being his career high in point production. After that, he spent the next 2 seasons with the Washington Capitals, who were awful in their first decade. His best season in that jersey was in 1977-78 when he scored 22 points, and that was just as good as it got for Forbes. David Forbes died on March 25th due to a heart attack in Colorado Springs, Colorado. He was age 75. Coming in at the number 9 spot is Chicago Blackhawks fan favorite and Bill Haye. He started his career with the now-defunct Calgary Stampeders in 1958, where he scored at over a point per game pace with 54 points in 53 games. After that, he made the Chicago Blackhawks roster out of training camp, where he subsequently won the Calder Trophy for Rookie of the Year in 1960. If you weren't impressed enough, he was part of the Chicago Blackhawks team that won the Cup in 1961. After that, Bill Haye remained with the organization, where he put up 2 20-goal seasons. Since his retirement, Bill Haye was the CEO of the Calgary Flames. He was then inducted to the NHL's Hockey Hall of Fame in 2015, and 6 years later in 2021, he was then named to the Order of Hockey in Canada. Bill Haye died on October 25th in Calgary, Alberta, due to natural causes at the ripe old age of 88. At number 8 on the list, we have a 7-year veteran in Sergey Barin. It's also the first of former NHLers that had their lives taken away from them too early. The Russian forward had 4 20-goal seasons, including a 30-goal year in 1998-99. After Toronto, he has had stints with the Arizona Coyotes, Montreal Canadiens, Chicago Blackhawks, and Washington Capitals. When the Capitals decided not to tender Sergey a qualifying offer following the 2003 season, Barin played 1 season with CSKA Moscow and retired shortly after. He had a notable special achievement in the NHL. The Russian forward scored the 10,000th goal on home ice for the Montreal Canadiens. After his retirement from playing professional hockey, Barin lived in Florida, staying there for the remainder of his life. The Russian forward suddenly died in his apartment at Windermere, Florida. He was 52 years old. Number 7 on the list is a guy who was part of the Montreal Canadiens dynasty team that won 5 consecutive Stanley Cups. And that's none other than Don Marshall. He started off with the Montreal Junior Canadiens of the QJHL when he was 17 years old. Marshall dominated his own age group, which even included scoring 32 goals in his final year of his Junior A career. And though he didn't set the NHL on fire by any stretch, his good luck was only just beginning, as he became part of the Habs team that was just way too unstoppable. The Verdun, Quebec native played mainly on the team's checking line alongside Phil Goyette and Claude Provost. Marshall remained with the Montreal Canadiens until he signed as an unrestricted free agent with the New York Rangers in the summer of 1963. And during his tenure there, Marshall put up 4 20-goal seasons, which included a career-high 26-goal campaign in 1966. When the Buffalo Sabres were awarded an expansion team in 1970, Don was chosen by the team to be part of the expansion draft. In Buffalo, he put up one last 20-goal season before closing out his career with the Toronto Maple Leafs in 1972. Marshall died on October 8 due to natural causes, and at the time of his death, he was the second to last remaining player on the Montreal Canadiens Stanley Cup winning teams in the late 1950s. He was 92 years old. Number 6 on the list is former Pittsburgh Penguins player Konstantin Koltsov. As the 18th overall selection by the organization in the 1999 NHL entry draft, his career was mainly spent in the Russian Super League, which is known as the KHL or Continental Hockey League nowadays. He did get some stints with the Pittsburgh Penguins before and after the lockout as well. He is the first player on this list to have played in the best hockey league in the world before and after the labor stoppage. Internationally, Konstantin played on the Belarus national team in the 2002 and 2010 Winter Olympics as well as the IIHF World Championships before coaching the national team. His life was cut short when he jumped to his death at the St. Regis Ball Harbor Resort in Florida. No foul play was suspected. He left us a month before his 43rd birthday. We're officially into our top 5, so you better strap yourselves down because this is going to be a bumpy ride. Number 5 on the list is Chris Simon. He started his career with the Quebec Nordiques, where he spent 3 years with the team. When they were sold and relocated to become the Colorado Avalanche, he was a Stanley Cup champion. After that, he had stints with the Washington Capitals, Calgary Flames, and the New York Islanders. Chris was an enforcer who unfortunately was suspended 8 times, missing 65 games as a result. 2 of them were pretty lengthy ones as well. His 30-game suspension was the 3rd longest after Raffi Torres and Marty McSorley, respectively. He had his last hurrah with the Minnesota Wild before handing up his skates following a 5-year stint in the best hockey league in Europe. Chris Simon's family believed that he struggled with chronic traumatic encephalopathy, or CTE for short, a degenerative brain disease that can result from repeated head injuries. He passed away on March 18th, and he was 52. Number 4 on the list was an 8-year veteran of the NHL as well as a Stanley Cup championship winner with the Montreal Canadiens in 1953. That's none other than Paul Mnik. A native of Regina, Saskatchewan, Paul Mnik spent the bulk of his career in both the NHL as well as minor professional leagues. He made his NHL debut when he was 19 years old in 1950, and it was in Montreal where he got to play with bigger names on the Canadiens such as Elmer Locke and Maurice Rocket Richard. His career peaked in 1953 when he raised the greatest award in all of sports, and that was the Stanley Cup. After Montreal, Paul Mnik had stints with the Chicago Blackhawks before playing his final year in the NHL with the Toronto Maple Leafs in 1957-58. The Canadian forward then spent the last 3 professional seasons with the St. Paul Saints of the now-defunct International Hockey League from 1960 to 1963. Paul Mnik died at his home in Barrie, Ontario from natural causes. He was the last surviving member of the Montreal Canadiens' 1953 Stanley Cup championship roster. He was 93. If you weren't already impressed enough, Mnik is the oldest player on the list. Number 3 on the list is former player and coach Jungi Talbot. He was a mainstay on defense for 7 Stanley Cup championship teams, all of them with the Montreal Canadiens. He even was part of the Canadiens Dynasty Club that won 5 straight Stanley Cups from 1956 to 1960. On top of that, he was a 6-time NHL All-Star as well. And when the St. Louis Blues were rewarded an expansion team in 1967, Talbot spent 3 more years with the team, and get this, in all 3 seasons with the Blues he made to the Stanley Cup Finals, losing to his former team, the Canadiens, twice and the Boston Bruins once. Speaking of the Boston series, Jungi Talbot earned notoriety when he was beat by Bruins legendary defenseman Bobby Orr, who then deposited the goal in the net and subsequently flew through the air in celebration. When the Buffalo Sabres were awarded an expansion team in 1970, Talbot was one of the original Sabres team, making him the first player to ever be an original member of two different NHL teams. After his retirement, he pursued a coaching career, coaching his former team, the St. Louis Blues, and then the New York Rangers. Jean-Guy Talbot died on February 22nd from natural causes. He was 91. Number 2 on the list is a guy who was named 24th on the 100 greatest Toronto Maple Leafs players of all time. And that player is none other than Ron Ellis. Ron made the Leafs roster shortly after they won the Cup in 1964 and remained with them until the 1981 season. He joined an exclusive list of players who spent their entire career with one franchise. He was a Stanley Cup championship winner with the Leafs in 1967, and he played for Team Canada in the 1972 Summit Series on the same line as a couple of other young stars by the names of Paul Henderson and Bobby Clarke. Ron has a great story regarding his jersey number. Ellis started his career wearing number 8, and former Leaf great Ace Bailey's number 6 was the first jersey number to ever be retired. Bailey was working as a timekeeper at Maple Leaf Garden and was so impressed with Ellis that Ace asked that his number 6 be unretired so that Ellis could wear it. Ron donned the number 6 jersey and he wore it until he hung up his skates, after which the jersey was re-retired, making it the only jersey number to be retired twice for the same player. He'd been wearing number 8 at the start of his career. Ron Ellis died on May 11th in Belleville of kidney failure. He was 79 years old. We have officially made it to the number 1 spot on the list of the most beloved NHL player who died in 2024. And unfortunately, it's also the youngest player on this list. I know what you're thinking. You probably already knew who was going to top the list, and I won't disappoint you. This year's top spot goes to Johnny Goodro. Johnny Hockey was mainly known for his time with the Calgary Flames and the Columbus Blue Jackets organizations, respectively. A native of Salem, New Jersey, Johnny Goodro was taken 104th overall in the 2011 NHL entry draft by the Calgary Flames and made his NHL debut 3 years later. In 2014-15, he was nominated for the Calder Trophy for Rookie of the Year, in which he would lose to Aaron Ekblad. 2 years later, Goodro was the winner of the Lady Byng Memorial Award for the league's most gentlemanly player, as he sat in the penalty box only twice. On top of that, he was a 7-time NHL All-Star. His best season came in 2021-22 when he scored 40 goals, 75 assists, and 115 points. Johnny Goodro and his brother Matthew were struck and killed by a drunk driver while they were riding their bikes in Old Man's Township, New Jersey, not far from their childhood home. The two were back in their hometown to attend their sister's wedding. Johnny's wife Madeline announced during the eulogy that they were expecting a third child, a boy, to be born sometime in April 2025. The incident took place just 2 weeks after he had just turned 31 years old. This concludes the top 10 list of NHL hockey players who died in 2024. Although these people are no longer with us, their memories will stay with us for generations to come. Did I leave anyone out? Let me know in the comments section down below. I still feel bad for leaving out Peter McNabb in 2022. Rest in peace to all the hockey players who have made a great impact during their careers.